welcome to part 4 of naming young global leaders and other Australians tied to the World Economic Forum. I want to start with the Australian Human Rights Commissioner, Edward Santow. He is a World Economic Forum young global leader of the class of 2017, and he was also our Human Rights Commissioner until very recently. Edward Santow is a World Economic Forum young global leader from the class of 2017. And at the time, he was the Human Rights Commissioner for the Australian Human Rights Commission. He served in that role from August 2016 until July 2021. He is heavily tied to the World Economic Forum. He's not just a young global leader, but he's also a member of the World Economic Forum's Global Future Council on Human Rights and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And he is also a World Economic Forum agenda contributor. It really puts into perspective why so many of our human rights have been disregarded since March 2020, and why it was so easy for the World Economic Forum to dominate our livelihoods. Possibly at this point, you may not be surprised to hear that Edward Santow is also very involved with the Fabian Society. If you don't see any significance in that, then I recommend you watch the video I posted on the Open Voice page Friday morning. Now, Ed left his role as the Human Rights Commissioner to take up a new position as Industry Professor for Responsible Technology at UTS, which is the University of Technology Sydney. And he says here he leads a new initiative on building Australia's capability on ethical artificial intelligence. It says Mr. Santow will lead a major UTS initiative to build Australia's strategic capability in artificial intelligence and new technology. This initiative will support Australian business and government to be leaders in responsible innovation by developing and using AI that is powerful, effective, and fair. In 2019, whilst Ed was the Human Rights Commissioner, he worked in partnership on behalf of the Australian Human Rights Commission with Nicholas Davis from the World Economic Forum on a white paper. And that white paper was entitled Artificial Intelligence, Governance and Leadership. And that can be still found there on the website. Now, it covered how to protect human rights in the context of AI and what a responsible innovation organisation should look like. Now, if you dig a little deeper, you'll also find that Edward is a member of the ADC Forum, the Australian Davos Connection, which, as I explained in part 2, is the organisation that is the facilitator for all of the key players that want complete control over the rest of us Australians. And the ADC Forum is drenched in Fabianism. So as you can see down here, Edward Santow is listed here as a speaker, and he's on panels for topics such as this one over here, facial recognition technology, the benefits. So after Edward left his role in July 2021 as the Human Rights Commissioner, he was replaced by our current Human Rights Commissioner, Miss Lorraine Finlay. Now, although she's not a young global leader, surprise, surprise, Lorraine is actually a World Economic Forum agenda contributor. Moving on to Sally Capp, the Lord Mayor of Melbourne. Sally is also connected to the World Economic Forum. She's an agenda contributor. You may remember that I mentioned Sally in part 2 in relation to her holding senior roles at KPMG, a World Economic Forum partner organisation, and also in part 3 as she's on the board of Melbourne University with other fellow World Economic Forum figures. So Sally Capp is the Lord Mayor of Melbourne, so therefore she works for the City of Melbourne. And you may be a little mortified to find out that the City of Melbourne is a World Economic Forum organisation. Yes, if you live in Melbourne, you are living under an organisation that is a World Economic Forum organization. So Sally Capp, who counts Bill Gates as one of her biggest influences, started her career in law, then moved on to working in banking, holding such positions as the head of office of CEO for the ANZ. Later on, she held the role of Agent General for the state government of Victoria. She held positions in tourism and then held the position of head of markets for KPMG. She's been on the board as an advisory council member for the Global Foundation for almost 10 years. If you haven't heard of the Global Foundation, well, you know, it's just another one of those innocent networks working as a non-profit organization comprised of some of the 0.1% most influential and wealthiest that say that they're working together and shaping global affairs for the common good. They have roundtables around the globe, including in Rome, and they're involved with the London School of Economics and other Fabianist organizations. So their website is actually down at the moment. However, because they are also allies with the World Benchmarking Alliance, you can find the rundown on their website. So the Global Foundation is a non-for-profit membership organization supported by influential people from around the world. Originating in Australia, the Global Foundation has become a trusted global network organization, enabling a relatively small but growing group of prominent citizens from many walks of life and many parts of the world to align and work together in a coherent way to help shape the global common good. The foundation convenes the Global Roundtable, an Australian roundtable series that gives confidence and enables alignment on complex world issues, free from official constraints. So if you haven't heard of the World Benchmarking Alliance, you can check out their website. It's quite interesting. You'll find that they were founded, one of their founders was the United Nations Foundation, and they're also tied in with the World Economic Forum, and they attend Davos every year. So Sally Capp is very proud to be the Lord Mayor of a city that is fast headed toward being a net zero city, a city that, as quoted here on a World Economic Forum article, states that net zero cities means denser living environments because they need more of us crammed together so we can reduce our carbon footprint. So they're designing living spaces where we never have to leave, where we don't need a car, and where we can live in what they call 20-minute cities. So they say on here, for urbanization to have social, environmental, and financial benefits, the following 6 factors are crucial. Dense urban settlements. Urban settlements need to be built at a density that creates a critical mass capable of supporting the essential services of a community, such as public transport, social and commercial services. Without density, we simply produce dormitory residential areas requiring a car-based transport solution devoid of the essential services that makes places work. This results in social isolation with high personal and living costs. Mixed-use neighbourhoods. The second essential is that these areas need to be mixed use where the local community can access all that they require for their daily living within a 20-minute walk. Mixed use is not only essential for ease of access, and it ensures that the expensive infrastructure required for successful urban areas is used to its optimum by eliminating the peaks and troughs of single-use neighbourhoods. Remote working during COVID has illustrated how mixed use is essential to making our local areas more accessible and livable. It can also assist in lowering congestion and saving time spent on lengthy commuting trips. So you can stay at home, you can live in a stay-at-home society, you don't need to go further than 20 minutes. Everything is provided for you, and it's in the name of sustainability and net zero. So connected by public transport. Communities need to be well connected with the Internet of Things, allowing easy access both locally and within metro areas. This will allow for a better balance between all modes of transport and help to transition away from a car-based society. Streets, which make up 80% of the public space in cities, can become more people-orientated, as is the case in the compact cities of the Northern Hemisphere that produce healthier, better activated street life. Accessible public space. With density, mixed use, and well-connected people, the public realm improves. Streets with sidewalks, cafes and trading, tree-lined roads and widened footpaths will be places to dwell in rather than simply rushing through. Streets are where we should live out our democratic and social experiences. They should be inclusive spaces that are safe and vibrant, safe with facial recognition technology, and vibrant in places where we meet, trade, or simply observe daily life. Local solutions. Importantly, as we build these places, they need to be built in harmony with their location. They need to reflect the local climate and aesthetic that results from a low energy response to building local character. Generic solutions that depend on shipping, air conditioning, and that all look the same are in opposition to net zero ambitions. So your air conditioner is in opposition. Previous generations and communities innately understood problems and built simple solutions. We should learn their lessons in designing our future buildings. That just really just sounds so contradictory. Prioritizing adaptability. Finally, we need to realize that we already live in cities that are poorly adapted to net zero living and need to employ adaptability to achieve the essential characteristics listed above. Incremental adaptation has seen Melbourne convert outdated office buildings into residential apartments, asphalt into open space, and widen footpaths to turn urban heat island into an urban forest. And then if you move down further here, they show you some photos and some maps and talk about the essential transition for net zero cities. So moving on to smart cities, as you may know, Melbourne is signed up to the Resilient Cities Network and also the Strong Cities Network. And now you know that the City of Melbourne is also a World Economic Forum city and also a smart city. Melbourne isn't the only resilient city. Sydney's also signed up and is also a smart city too. And then other Australian cities that are signed up to the Smart Cities Network are Adelaide and Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and that list is growing. But make no mistakes, if the agenda is fulfilled, barely anybody will be living anywhere in Australia that isn't a smart city. So you won't be able to live in rural areas and you'll be put in situations, unforeseen situations or situations, you know, caused by climate change where you'll have no choice but to move into a smart city. And you can check out the blueprints for this on the World Economic Forum website, where you'll find the strategic intelligent map for cities and urbanization. It's all based on the common good, sustainability, climate change, the Internet of Things, the fourth industrial revolutions, all of those keywords. So before I wrap up, for those in Brisbane, you may be interested to know that Diane Curry, our Chief Planner at the Brisbane City Council, is also a World Economic Forum member, and she's also a member of the World Economic Forum Global Future Council on Cities of Tomorrow and a co-chair for the UN Habitat Stakeholder Advisory Group. So that concludes part 4. Stay tuned for part 5.